The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max Smackdown Review.
Hello and
Paul, how was your
welcome
weekend?
to Jesus. Harry. Damn it. Anyway, thank you for joining us here on the Wrestling to the Max Smackdown Live review for January 3rd, 2017. And as you already heard, we actually have a guest tonight, bringing back that rotating third person, Mr. Harry Broadhurst. How are you doing?
My apologies, sir. I wasn't aware that the delay was over and we were ready to go.
It's okay. It's par for the course for Harry.
Yeah, I'm always interrupting somebody on the start of these shows.
And of course, here with me as always, Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
So, yes, we are of course reviewing SmackDown. We'll kind of be interspersing Talking Smack in here as well. So to get things going here, if I can find my place of what I'm supposed to be talking about in this SmackDown, they decided to start off with The Miz and Maryse being upset about this whole thing with this Renee Young and Ambrose beating him up and all this, even though, Miz kind of caused this thing in the first place, so he really can't blame anybody but himself. He takes credit for SmackDown's ratings going up and saying that Renee has no journalistic integrity. So then, basically, Ambrose comes out and Maryse slaps him. And Ambrose just says, well, I'm glad that my whole night's done because your wife hits harder than you. And this also leads to Maryse going backstage to slap Renee Young out of nowhere. I mean, but you could have heard that slap, I think, in the next county. It was so freaking loud. And this also leads to your main event, which is your IC title match with The Miz and Dean Ambrose. Really good match here. And Dean Ambrose, your new Intercontinental Champion, avoiding all of the interference from the Maryse until she eventually gets thrown out by the referee. And Miz even uses the title, and he can't get the win. What do you guys think of how they handled the main storyline throughout this show? And then also Miz freaking out at the end of Talking Smack, almost crying there. What do you think, Harry?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed that's consistent about SmackDown is that they usually have their shows have an overarching theme. In this particular episode of SmackDown, it was the whole Miz-Ambrose storyline, which kind of took a backseat last week due to the wild card finals, as well as the two title matches. But this week, Miz and Ambrose came back to the forefront here, not only opening the show, not only having the segment in the middle of the show right near the top of the 9 o'clock hour, but also bookending the show by having the main event as well. I think Ambrose winning the Intercontinental title to a degree makes sense because honestly, there's not much you can do with him in the main event picture right now with Cena back and leaving us with AJ and Cena for your main event. But at the same time, I do think that it kind of hurts Miz's momentum a little bit as well, dropping the title to Ambrose because Ambrose as a character has been kind of stagnant recently.
I'll give you this stagnant thing, but I think the title change was necessary, but I think it could have waited, honestly, a little bit, and maybe, I'm sure they just want to keep the momentum going as far as ratings went, as they said on the show, but I think having Dean here might have been just a touch too soon. The match is good. I think with a lot of the other work that they did on this episode, it makes sense in the long run because I don't know if Miz is necessarily going to win it back, but I think Miz might be moving on to possibly bigger and brighter things when you have a lot of stuff percolating on the undercard. So maybe Dean can work with guys like Baron or stuff like that for the title.
Sean, can I toss a question back at you about this whole storyline?
Go ahead, man.
Do you think this is the storyline that leads to Renee Young actually debuting as an in-ring competitor?
You know, I don't know. They are really going pretty hard on the whole her not being a wrestler. They did it on Talking Smack, where they fined Maryse a bunch of money for slapping her. I think you kind of have to. Well, she's a non-wrestler too, so it's one of these things where I think you'll eventually kind of do it. I don't know that it's going to be right now, but I think perhaps you build this up and keep building this up, and maybe on the next SmackDown, whatever is it a fast lane? Maybe you do it there. It has to lead to something, right? Other than just them kind of taking jabs at each other.
SmackDown has the chamber, I think, in between, don't they?
I thought we talked about Raw having the chamber. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think Raw has Fastlane, although they just had a Fastlane 3 months ago, so it might go to SmackDown or last month, whatever.
Wasn't that Roadblock?
That was Roadblock. Yeah, that would mean that would mean SmackDown would have the. Yeah, because they're not going to do 2 Raw single shows in a row, so you're right. Because Elimination Chamber's the last one, right?
Patrick and I kind of discussed the pay-per-view schedule for the start of the year. We have the dual brand Rumble. We have one Raw and one SmackDown. One's in the middle of February. The other one's at the very beginning of March, and then that's it for pay-per-view until April 2nd.
Let me see.
Elimination Chamber is SmackDown.
Okay. Well, that's probably better. They got the less abused top of the card. Unless they're going to do other stuff in the chamber too. So, I mean, well, either way, that you're certainly not going to have them in the Elimination Chamber. So, it is a nice little, I guess, undercard match you could have, whether you have Renee and Dean against Miz and Maryse, or you just do it on SmackDown because Ambrose would probably be involved in the Elimination Chamber. But, I don't see what you gain if you don't have Renee do something. At least show up at ringside and start like being there for his matches or something of that variety.
Honestly, when they shoehorned Renee into Total Divas, I kind of saw something like this coming. That she would end up on.
Good.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, I think the finish sort of felt like once they threw Maryse out, it felt like maybe you have Renee run in there and just either get revenge just by slapping her back or something like that, but they didn't go that way. So I don't know if we'll ever see her in the ring. Personally, I could care less either way, just because I don't know exactly how much she's really going to add at this point. But certainly, it is a possibility, and if it happens, great. If it doesn't, then it's no skin off my nose, really.
I kind of like to see it just to. It's a total. I'm sure they'll play it up on Total Divas. Don't even know if it's going to be this season or not, but it would be interesting just to see what they would have Renee Young do at all in that moment. Obviously, I'm sure she'll get something where she'll get to slap Maryse back or whatever, but will she actually get to be involved wrestling-wise at all or near the ring at all would be an interesting thing for her. Just because they don't have to have her continue to do that, right? She can do that one time, you settle everything, and she goes back to doing what she does. See, I mean, they also had another big thing here for this show was the contract signing between AJ Styles and John Cena, which probably was one of the best segments that we've had on SmackDown, period, let alone for both of these men in their careers. I mean, the promo back and forth. I mean, we've seen Cena do this many times. He gets into the "I'm very heated" Cena and gives everything to AJ. I loved AJ bringing up the Rock quotes and kind of pushing it back to John Cena as well. It was like, hey, well, this is kind of what you are now. What did you guys think? I know Paul, you were really loving it as well.
Yeah, I thought this segment was absolutely incredible. Certainly, maybe some of the best promo work that I've ever seen AJ Styles do throughout his entire career. I thought Cena was equally good coming back with the retort. It still's got all the heat from when they left it before Cena took his break. I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't bring up the fact that in that triple threat that they had with Dean, where AJ sort of just got left out. Dean has gotten his rematch, and now Cena's getting his. I'm really surprised they didn't bring up any of that.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. And then you also had Baron Corbin come out and kind of get in both of their faces and be like, hey, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble. I'm winning it. I don't care which one of you it is. I'm going to kick y'all's asses. And then John Cena just, kind of gets in his face. And then AJ enzigures on the back of the head. And there's the end of your segment. But what do you think, Harry?
As far as the back and forth between Cena and Styles goes, the issue that I have, and it's the same thing that I've been saying about this before, is that AJ's not bringing up anything we haven't seen other people bring up before when it comes to Cena. The difference is that Styles actually doesn't need what Cena says that he needs. When Cena said that you come down to this ring every night because you have to, I come down to this ring every night because I want to. No, that's not the case for AJ Styles. Styles has been a bona fide star wherever he's gone for the better part of the last decade and a half. AJ could retire tomorrow and live comfortably for the rest of his life. He does it because he wants to do it as well still. He wants to make his name inside of the main company there. And he wants to make his name at the expense of Cena. As far as the Baron Corbin thing goes, I was impressed by Corbin in last week's triple threat match, so if they're going to use this to elevate him up the card on a more permanent basis, I'm okay with it. I think the guy's been nothing but impressive ever since he's come up to the main roster. I really enjoyed the match with Kalisto. I really enjoyed the triple threat match last week, and I think that him and AJ Styles could have a really good one-on-one match as well.
Well, I mean, AJ Styles could have a match with a broom at this point. But, no, that's not slighting Corbin. I'm just making a point that AJ Styles is great. I just think I've really been digging Corbin too. I think I like the way they inserted him here. This is kind of how you build a guy from the mid card and try to make him feel like the equal to these guys. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, but they understand that they have to build stars on that show. They understand that they have to build people that you care about on that show because you have such a limited roster. Especially of singles guys, that roster's a lot more, tag and everything else. So I really like the way they've been elevating Corbin, and then Corbin goes and cuts a nice promo on Talking Smack as well, which has been a breeding ground for him as far as being able to just improve so much on the microphone. Every time he goes on Talking Smack, he's better every time. So, they really used that show to its full potential. Not only in making it seem very grounded, but also in helping these guys and the women get some time to showcase themselves. Paul, I mean, how'd you feel about Baron Corbin kind of getting in there at the end?
Yeah, I feel kind of differently than you guys do. I think it took away a little bit from the end of that segment, just because when he came out, I think some of the heat just sort of disappeared on the segment instead of just having them either. I actually would have been okay with them just doing the traditional brawl if they wanted to do that, or if you just have AJ just walk away. I think that would have been a perfect ending. This might have been a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. I just feel like there might have been a better way for you to have Corbin say he's going to be in the Rumble without necessarily having to trump on the segment here.
Fair enough. Anything, Harry, before we move on?
Well, I already kind of touched on the Corbin thing there, too, as far as my thoughts on his placement in this segment there. That being said, as far as Corbin goes, I don't think Corbin's going to be the guy in the title match at WrestleMania, but I could see him as a perfectly fine contender for after WrestleMania for the title, whoever comes out of Mania holding it.
Yeah, and you did have a really good match with him and Ziggler on this show, which might perhaps be their best match that they've had, because they had that series when Corbin first got there, and man, those matches were not very good.
The problem is those guys have wrestled so many times, it's almost to the point that I don't care to see this matchup anymore. And I know that's something that we say all the time on the reaction, too, is that you constantly pair up the same guys against each other. It's going to get to the point of, why should we care this time if you're just going to do it again in a couple of weeks anyway? Although, given what happened after the match, I don't necessarily think that'll be the case anymore.
Yeah,
I think they might have given AJ and Cena enough of a break at this point.
Well, I think he's talking about Corbin and Ziggler.
Oh. Well,
so I mean,
we talked Corbin really at this point. So.
I mean, but we talked yesterday on the Raw review about how they basically keep cycling the same four guys, and if you go and look at Roman Reigns' cage match, how many of those matches are with Kevin Owens that he has on there? Are you kind of in that same boat with some of the matchups on SmackDown, or do you think it's different because of the storytelling is better there?
I think the storytelling on SmackDown is a lot better, and they're definitely not going to the well as often for most of these matchups here. Yeah, we get some matches that carry over from week to week to week here, but this, let's take, for example, the tag team title match that was made for next week there. It was going to be 2-on-2 as the Wyatts take on American Alpha. That's a first-time matchup, and if it's the four members of this match that were the original representation of the SmackDown tag titles for the Wyatt family of Bray and Randy against Jason Jordan and Chad Gable, that match is going to be amazing.
I mean, not that it wouldn't be amazing with Luke Harper either. But.
Oh, no, I agree, but I think that for some odd reason, Orton and Wyatt work better than Harper and Wyatt do as a team. I don't know why.
What do you think about that, Paul?
I haven't seen too much of a difference as far as the combinations. I mean, they're going to come at him with Wyatt and Orton, though. I mean, you had the fallout there with Harper and Orton almost coming to blows. I think they're going to let Bray sort of try to let that cool off. They'll challenge at the Rumble, and whether they're successful or not, I guess will depend on if they're ready to blow that situation up or not.
I mean, how do you feel about... Go ahead, Harry.
I was just going to ask, what did you think about Orton cutting off Harper with that run line at the end of the promo?
I mean, it's more of that same, I don't want to say subtle storytelling because it wasn't so subtle this time. But we've talked about this a lot on here, too, is what they've really done well with this whole situation is Harper in the background has played beautifully off of all these things where Orton's cutting in, or he's becoming the number one guy in the family next to Bray, where that used to be his spot, and he doesn't really like that. Plus, he also still seems to think that Orton's still going to screw him over at some point. So I really dig all this the little minute storytelling among the Wyatts is really, really compelling for me.
Yeah, it almost seems like Randy Orton's been really reinvigorated by being paired with Bray and Luke, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he talked about that too. He said he's really enjoyed doing the storyline, and that's probably perhaps why they've kept it going so long, is because he does really enjoy it. And why not? I mean, you've done everything else, right? So this is something that's actually kind of, like Paul said, it's compelling every time they go out there. There's something else, some little tiny detail that you get to notice and enjoy about it and go, man, they're really building this great. So whenever they do have that final moment where, okay, this is the end, whether it's Orton screwing him over or it's Harper finally just getting tired of it and going after Orton or whatever it is, it's going to be so well done, there's going to be good stuff here. Paul, what do you think? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's going to lead to one of two endings, as you were saying. Either Harper's finally going to turn babyface and walk away from the family, or Orton's going to have his Daniel Bryan moment where he turns on the family there. But either way, it's going to send Bray and whoever doesn't turn face against whoever does turn face, and probably a partner of their finding.
Oh, maybe you're building up enough to where, Rowan's back by then.
Let's not make anyone happy with Rowan.
I mean, it would make sense, though, for Harper to do it, and then Rowan sides with his buddy that he used to tag with all the time. I think that would be perfectly fine. Rowan's a great tag team wrestler, I think. His single efforts have left a lot to be desired, but I've never had a problem with him working in a tag team.
Yeah, I seem to remember him and Harper having really good tag matches against the Usos.
Mm-hmm.
They did. Those were some really
one of those
matches.
Early NXT staples.
Yeah, and then they had it on the main roster for a while where the Harper and Rowan just could never win the tag titles. It was like...
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that awesome 2 out of 3 false tag match that they had, too.
Despite me predicting them to win the tag titles every single freaking pay-per-view they had the chance to.
And that's how they get you, man. It really was, like, at some point you're like, God, this has got to be the time, right? This has got to be it. Nope. They don't get it. It's like, damn, all right.
I mean, how many times were we like that with the club last year, Sean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but what do you think about this, Paul, with the whole... Do you think SmackDown handles having these rematches better than Raw does, or?
I think what makes SmackDown better at doing this sort of thing is that they're simply better at storytelling than Raw is. Raw, a lot of the guys at the top that you keep cycling through is either Reigns, who has a lot of damage on him just based on live crowd stuff, Seth Rollins, who they've handled very poorly since the babyface turn, and Kevin Owens and Jericho, who are great together, but they don't really let them do much separately or really feel like they're going to keep, I don't want to say mattering, but they don't have that same drive, that guys over on SmackDown do, like AJ Styles, like John Cena, like Dolph Ziggler, like Dean Ambrose, like The Miz. You have a lot more interesting stuff going on at the top, and you cycling them around and continually changing up the story and progressing it forward to where these characters are changing, I think it makes it infinitely better.
All right. Well, moving from here, we did get we didn't get what we got from what Harry mentioned earlier, which is the American Alpha being involved here. You have American Alpha basically taking out Breeze and Fandango in about 30 seconds. It's so sad.
I feel so bad for them. They're actually a really good team because if you guys remember the qualifying matches for the SmackDown Tag Title Tournament, these two faced each other in the first round of the SmackDown Tag Team Title Tournament and had a damn fine match.
I love Breezango personally. I was kind of upset that they just got squashed here in 30 seconds, but the story here is American Alpha's on a roll, and we're going to see how far they're going to run with that before hopefully the Revival comes up and smacks them in the mouth.
That would be amazing.
Just pick.
Exactly.
This is kind of what you got to do with them, right? Because you didn't have this... You didn't have this like great reaction to American Alpha winning the title, so you need to sort of build them up and make them look strong. And I like this too. Now let's see what happens in that tag title match and where they go from there for those guys. Also go ahead.
Don't get me wrong, I have no issues with American Alpha having a squash win to put over their tag title victory there. I just don't think it should have been Breezango. You have a team like the Vaudevillains that are doing literally nothing and that Vince doesn't care about, whereas I think there's a fan base that actually does care about Breezango there. I think there's a group of fans that actually enjoy the work that Breezango is putting in too, whereas the Vaudevillains have been doing literally nothing but treading water since the brand split. So why weren't they the team in this spot tonight rather than Breezango?
How many times they got to get squashed, I guess.
Right, exactly.
That's
You've
literally
seen the
been all they've
Vaudevillains
done.
get squashed.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you could have pulled the Ascension in here too, but you've also seen them get squashed a bunch. So you're gonna protect the Usos. You know what you're doing with the Wyatts. You got American Alpha, and then everybody else is kind of one of those. And you got one team that's out of commission because of Zack Ryder. So you know, it kind of sucks when these injuries start piling up like that. You did have 2 segments for the women, and then also this little thing with Carmella and James Ellsworth as well that's been building here with James Ellsworth gives her the shirt that she will wear for her match later on. La Luchadora is taking on Becky Lynch here. So they had, I think it was Becky basically having this match with Luchadora, and then you have both of them there at one point, but Alexa Bliss takes off her mask just very much like Becky did when she won, and Alexa Bliss turning the tables.
Not quite.
Okay.
They switched the Luchador switched mid-match, and then Becky caught Alexa in the disarmor and tapped her and then took her mask off after the match. And then that's when the other La Luchador came in and distracted Becky long enough for Alexa to get the advantage.
Yeah, this is the one part that I missed. So, because my PlayStation View decided to be weird all of a sudden.
Oh.
So...
I mean, it's a match masquerading as an angle. All it is. We still don't know who's underneath the hood, so you have the angle going on there. Becky gets a small modicum of revenge against Alexa. This moves along very nicely.
Paul, I have a theory for you. Tell me if I'm crazy.
Shoot.
All right. Now, obviously, there are sites reporting who's currently playing La Luchadora.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys have gone into this. I don't know if we want to go into this on here.
Well,
if
we
want to
already
keep this
know it's
strictly
Deonna Purrazzo as far as who's playing.
Right. For now, it's Deonna Purrazzo. How would you feel about it being unmasked as Mickie James down the line?
That's what we're thinking it's going to be.
I think we've talked about that a little. I honestly would just be okay with them outright signing Deonna Purrazzo and trying to spin their way out of that. She's a fantastic wrestler too, but I mean, if it's not Mickie down the line, I don't know who else you use unless, I mean, out of nowhere it's like Naomi or something weird like that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much Mickie James, unless they decide to, like Paul said, just sign Deonna Purrazzo and have Mickie James debut in a different way. But it doesn't make any sense for it to be anybody else. You already know that she's sort of, WWE never made this official, so I think they're trying to keep it hidden. The only reason you're keeping this kind of thing hidden is because you're putting her in this sort of stipulation, right? Because any other time WWE always makes a big deal about, oh wow, we signed Mickie James, or we signed this person, or
right. Look at how they reacted when they announced Shelton Benjamin was coming back to SmackDown before he messed up his shoulder.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of just leads me to think that they're going to debut him in this role, which is totally fine. It's going to be interesting how they do Mickie, and then I think you need that because when we first talked about Mickie coming, I was like, well, Mickie sort of has a very similar character to Becky Lynch. How can you kind of get around that? Well, you have her be that mass person and you have the crowd automatically. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to hate Mickie James because she's a returning star, but still, you get that heat there for them to want to cheer Becky.
Yep.
What do you guys think? I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I certainly think that Mickie and Becky would have to be the marquee match out of the SmackDown's women's division.
You know, I mean, Nikki Bella is very quickly turning into something over there that gets a whole lot of noise, whether it's cheers or boos. So I that's championships going around her waist, I think, next after all this is done. Because I don't know if Becky wins it back. that's great. But I think if Alexa holds on to it, it's going towards Nikki sooner rather than later.
I would kind of like to see Alexa hold on to a little bit. Becky is big enough at this point that I don't think she has to have it. So I think having the young heel going up against the established face or tweener or whatever you want to make Nikki at this point.
I would almost
works.
I would almost say that it's probably going to happen around Mania where Nikki takes the title off of Alexa, if that is the way they decide to go with it.
That's probably what they're doing. I mean, so unless they're going to have Carmella just face different people from NXT, and maybe that's what they're doing, but I feel like they missed a big thing here to not have Carmella versus Liv Morgan instead of Carmella versus Aaliyah. Like, why wouldn't you make Carmella even more pissed that you have somebody that kind of has sort of her character as well? But this was just surprising to see Aaliyah here, and of course this further.
She got a lot more offense than I thought she was going to get in this match. I honestly fully expected this to be a squash, not a Carmella needs a James Ellsworth distraction to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think her time already in NXT has made her a bit better. She looks pretty smooth here. I mean, granted, this is only like two and a half, maybe 3 minutes. Doesn't matter. It wasn't long, but I think what she got, she looked good. So I mean, that's at least something to take away from this. Other than that, I mean, the Carmella and James Ellsworth story is actually pretty compelling. If this is going to be how the storyline keeps going, then maybe this is a good way to slingshot Carmella into the title scene too.
I was thinking that as that happened tonight, that eventually Carmella gets a match against the face champion, and Ellsworth plays the deciding factor in her winning the title. I was thinking that while this match was going on too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not? What else is James Ellsworth going to do at this point, right? We already had...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I mean, we already had him be in the world title picture. I mean, where can you go from there? He's not going to win unless you're an idiot. So this is the kind of thing he's going to be involved in. I don't have a problem with this. I mean, yeah, you're kind of making fun of him in a way, but that's what he's kind of there for as well.
No, I think Ellsworth knew what he signed up for when he got the contract to do this gimmick here. He knows what his role is, and honestly, he's played it about as well as humanly possible. I did love the fact that he kept screwing up his lines when talking to Carmella backstage. That made it a whole lot more realistic to me. Because obviously this is a guy who traditionally, under real-life circumstances, wouldn't have a snowballs with a chick like Carmella in real life.
Right. That's what makes
I mean, it can't
great.
be any worse than the flubbing that the announcer lady that interviewed Dean on his way to the match was. Like, that was terrible.
Oh, I felt so bad for Dasha.
Yeah.
Damn, man, at least you remembered her name.
I actually liked Dasha in NXT, but good Lord, that cat had her tongue something serious tonight, didn't it?
Yeah, really.
Bad.
And then on Talking Smack, you had Carmella and James Ellsworth kind of... Carmella was trying to say everything but, like, that they actually have sex. And then basically made it seem like James Ellsworth is kind of like her little kid that goes around and just... Her little nerdy friend that goes around and tells her she's pretty and holds everything for her when they go to the mall and everything. Just... hey, can't hate on James Ellsworth's game.
Well, I guess after Big Cass, she needed a break.
Had to go for the guy with no chin.
Slumming it a little. God bless her heart.
I think that's sort of everything on...
We missed a big talking point, Sean.
What is that? Oh, wait, yeah, we didn't talk... I forgot to talk about this with Baron Corbin and Ziggler's match, but Ziggler decided to go off the rails a bit and he attacked Apollo Crews backstage, and then he attacked Kalisto too after Kalisto tried to go and help him out to the ring. I mean, geez, talk about having no class for somebody helping you out. But do you think this is really going to be the thing that makes Dolph Ziggler now? I mean, this is not the first time he turned.
I think the problem with Ziggler is that he finds himself in a very crowded upper card picture on SmackDown, and it's also a heel-heavy upper card picture. I think he'd had more success moving to the main event scene if he would stay babyface. This right here probably brings him into feuds with Kalisto and Apollo Crews rather than pushing him up to the next level.
See, this might be SmackDown, though, playing ahead of the curve, because we've talked about how popular AJ's been, and the crowd very well could just automatically turn him face without the WWE ever doing anything. Suddenly, you could have Ziggler primed to challenge.
Yeah, that's it's very true. I mean, obviously, when you're going against somebody like Cena, you're going to get out cheered like AJ was here. And also depends on what area of the country you're in, because there's times where AJ gets more cheers than anybody on that entire roster, including Cena at times. So we've talked about this. I think definitely you're getting an AJ Styles. He's going to eventually be a face guy. I mean, look, I love him as a heel. I don't think you have to change anything about him either. I think you just let him be AJ Styles. You can let him wrestle whoever. I think you'll be fine, because you'll either get people booing AJ Styles or get people cheering AJ Styles. So if you have a heel Ziggler against them, it's fine.
Styles is one of those guys who has a moveset that translates to being either a heel or a face. Because without necessarily needing to, his moveset is inherently flashy. The springboard 450 is a very flashy move. The Styles Clash is a very flashy move that, other than Michelle McCool, we haven't really seen in the WWE. And McCool's version of it was, let's be honest, a second-rate copy at best. His Asahi Moonsault DDT that he does, you don't see anything else like that in the WWE. He's so flashy inside of the ring that there are people that are going to cheer for him regardless of his face-heel alignment. And I think that you might be right in saying that their fans are eventually going to turn him babyface, whether the WWE does it officially or not. So setting up potential challengers down the line for his face run is a very smart idea. I question if Ziggler's going to be able to maintain his momentum as a heel, feuding with a guy who has no heat right now in Apollo Crews, and the guy who's just coming back from an injury again in Kalisto.
What do you think, Paul? I
mean, when it comes, I think, to Dolph working with the lower card talent, first of all, because I want to touch on that first, him working with Apollo Crews might just be what the doctor ordered. Dolph does have interest and buzz around him. Apollo doesn't. If they actually do something with him there, as well as Kalisto, you might have two more stars on your hand there to work with, at least around the Intercontinental title scene, if not maybe moving them up to challenge someday. As far as AJ, I mean, I think since the beginning they've just let AJ be AJ and sort of booked him to be a heel at the start. And now it's just sort of, at this point, just letting him go wherever the flow takes them. So if that happens to be that he's faced by the time WrestleMania or even SummerSlam this year comes around, then I think that's just all within the plan.
Well, we were kind of talking about this before we came on the air for this podcast here, and the thought that I had to you guys is I think Miz will be the SmackDown champion by SummerSlam as a heel, and I think AJ may end up being his challenger.
I have a hard time seeing Miz as the champion today, like talking right now. Maybe that'll change after WrestleMania, because I think they're pretty gung-ho on what they got going that way right now, whether it actually ends up being Taker or Cena with the belt, and AJ sort of gets, I don't want to say snubbed, but snubbed. Just he's not in the best, like he's consistently been Intercontinental Champion. I don't know if there's enough there to elevate him yet, or if Cena does win, then maybe so. But today, I have a hard time seeing it.
I'd agree. It's really hard to see Miz the champion right now, but look, you can't say he hasn't deserved it. He's been freaking tremendous in 2016. You want to make a comeback player of the year award, you give it to the Miz right now. I mean,
I actually took it a step further. We're doing our voting for the Yesies over in the Yes Wrestling group. Miz is my 2016 Wrestler of the Year.
You can certainly have that argument if you want to. I think there's definitely, when you're looking at bodies of work, other guys, but I think when you look at the whole package, Miz has certainly been that guy, especially since the brand split. And my problem with it is, before then, he wasn't necessarily that important of a guy. He had great little Miz TV segments here and there, but it wasn't until the brand split that you finally saw the Miz we're getting now. So, you know.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think it happened a little bit before the brand split, but he's definitely shown the biggest out of the brand split for anybody on the SmackDown roster. I think that his real breakout happened when Maryse returned the night after WrestleMania. Because she, as we were saying with Orton, she reinvigorated him.
Oh yeah, Paul talks about that all the time.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think she made that whole act infinitely more interesting. I think it made The Miz more, I don't want to say hungry, but I mean maybe it did make him more hungry. I don't know. He's been a much better and a much more interesting performer since then. So much so that I mean Maryse has been one of the better just non-wrestler acts around the WWE and in wrestling in general. They found a way to consistently keep her interesting as well as The Miz.
I know she got some votes in the 4-on-1 Non-Wrestler of the Year award category.
Yeah, I think I gave her second, I think, in mine.
I mean, she totally is, like you said, they work part and parcel with each other. They, when Miz was sort of doing that thing where we still didn't have the brand split, her doing the kind of building up that whole him being the actor gimmick was awesome. Just with the, he doesn't drink that kind of water and then throw it at the guy, or just throw something back at somebody. Like, those little things would make The Miz just more awesome for you to care about than just when he was just a Miz by himself. So.
Oh no, she had that. Pardon the phraseology here, but it's the best word to describe it here. She had that perfect bitch character down from the second she came back to the company.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And the whole speaking French and you know everything that she's been doing is tremendous. Can't knock her on anything, honestly. But yes, so all we have to do now is give this show a rating here. So, what do you think for this SmackDown?
You want me or Paul to start?
Go ahead, Harry.
Go ahead, Harry.
All right. I give tonight's SmackDown an 8.5. I was actually really entertained, and I think that that's something that we can consistently say about SmackDown, much more so than its Monday night counterpart, in the fact that, yeah, not having that extra hour shoehorned in helps it more conveniently fly by. But at the same time here, top to bottom, the creative writing team for SmackDown is just so much better than Raw's, because they're able to find new feuds for people. They're able to make new characters that have their moments in the sun. They're able to establish people as relevant, and then you have meaning behind things that happen there. Like if you'd have told me 3 weeks ago that Renee Young would be the central focus of an Intercontinental title storyline, I wouldn't have believed you. But this right here is perfectly viable for me, and it's the best way to use Renee, in addition to her having her role on Talking Smack. So I'm going with an 8.5.
I don't think this was better than last week's episode, which I gave that an 8. I think this is a 7. You have two pretty good matches. The Cena and AJ segment was incredible. A lot of the other stuff is just sort of small little builds here and there, but it's not overly... It doesn't feel very big at this point. You know, it certainly could be down the line. But as far as tonight goes, you had a lot of good stuff on here. Nothing was wasted, which is still one of the things I love about SmackDown the most. But I think this is a solid 7.
I'll go with 7.5. You had some really good. You had the the good match with Corbin and Ziggler. You had the really good match with Miz and Ambrose. Then you had stuff that, again, like Paul pointed out, all the things that they do on SmackDown matter, right? They don't waste segments. You don't have things that are on SmackDown for no reason. It all leads into a story, so it all works in its cohesive way, and it makes SmackDown so an enjoyable thing to watch every week. I'll go with that 7.5, and that will do it for us as far as reviewing SmackDown. We are going to be doing, Paul and I are going to be doing that 205 Live here in just a little bit. And then, on to that road ahead of staying up for Wrestle Kingdom 11 here in a few hours.
Hype level is reaching 10,000%. I'm so ready.
Yep. Over 9,000 over here. So, Harry, thank you for joining us, man. You gotta let the people know where they can find you.
Well, I mentioned Yes Wrestling, one of the main places here. All the members of the W2M leadership are involved with Yes Wrestling as well. I know Sean and Gary regularly comment, and I see Paul here and there as well. In addition, you can listen to myself again here on the W2M network, as myself and Patrick Kesta co-host a show called Wrestling Unwrapped. It is a DVD/pay-per-view review show. We have our season debut this Sunday night as we go all the way back to one of the best matches in WWE history and one of the worst as we tackle SummerSlam 1994. In addition, myself, Tony Acero, and Rick Balin are back with the Raw Reaction Monday nights at 11:30 on ProWrestling.biz radio. Gentlemen, I thank you for having me. Enjoy covering 205 Live.
Alrighty. Well, everybody, we will see you later.
Take it easy, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.